start, you don't know how things are related. Just with very simple alignments, you understand the reading pattern. So that's why typography is an interface. Yeah. Okay. I have a different way of looking at grids. Do you know Massimo Vianelli? American Italian designer, very kind of modernist kind of school of typography. So he designed this unit grid system. It's a 12-column grid to unify all of the U.S. National Parks publications. I'm not going to explain how this system works because I have another way of looking at how grids work. Because the most important thing is not the grid itself, but how you use the grid to code different kinds of content, to articulate the content structure. Okay. So let's look at a set of slides like I have today. It's a very simple structure. A grid really is using the space and designating different areas for different functions or different types of content. So in a very low resolution kind of a medium, like the screen, like the projector here, you know, I have a structure that's quite simple. I've developed. There's a presentation title, there's a content list, and that is called a title screen. And then I have a set of bullet points, you know, I have bullet points, a title with an image. You know, these patterns are templates that you can use, and they become a grid that's based on content. So really, you just need to have consistent alignment lines, duplicate it across the templates to give it consistency. So it's I think this is a very simple way to explain how a grid works. Let's say you have a display panel or a poster. So I have a 6-column grid here, but how you use it is more important. So I designate that as the title area. Under that, I have a short introduction that helps people grasp the overview of the poster very quickly. I have an image that attracts people's attention. I have a long space here for a timeline. And then I have 5 units of information with a small image and a text block. And then I have a sidebar. You know, that's how you use a grid. It's not about just fitting everything into the grid and forget about it. It doesn't work like that. You need to designate areas for different purposes, for different types of content. Okay. Alignment line again, right? To give it structure. Okay. And then something a little bit more complicated, a multi-page document. So you might want to set up a relationship like this, an image and a caption, image, caption repeated, and then you have body text, and then on a single column you have notes. So setting up a structure and repeating it is very important in a multiple page document. Okay. So you have alignment lines again, like that. That's consistent. Another way of handling images in the same publication, you might have a full bleed image like that, a caption in a small column. You might have an image that spans across the 3 columns but doesn't bleed, have a caption as well, and then body text like that. So you're setting up a system for yourself. Not for yourself. You're setting up a system for the content. Okay? That's how it should be done. For the content. Not just because it looks good. It wouldn't work if it's like that. Okay. Let's say you have a section divider that separates the chapters. You have a full bleed image that draws people's attention kind of as a transition into that section. And you have a title, you have a section number, you have a short introduction, you have a content list. So you know, this is a good way of looking at how to use a grid. Margins are very important. If you have an equal margin on all sides, it's usually too long for text because the text has to span across the page. You know, that kind of a margin is a lot more inviting to read already. You might want to separate them into 2 columns so the lines are shorter, but it might connote something. It might look like a scientific journal, for example, or a magazine or newsletter. You can have a main column with a sub-column for supporting information, or subsidiary information like notes, assignments. And then you have folio, that means page number, and running foot as navigational devices. Okay, so that's using space to articulate content structure. Yeah. So now let's look a little bit closer at how you structure the textual content. Typographic hierarchy. Okay, I think this might be the first time that you hear typography explain this way. You might ask, where's the typography? Where are the typefaces? This is typography. Okay, look at this now. All right. So for every publication, there's kind of like, I call the norm. That's the main argument of the publication, right? So mainly it's called body text usually. So that's the kind of the normal pattern of reading. You have a main text, or you call it body text or continuous text. Above that norm, you have elements that dominate over the norm, that draws more attention than the norm. Below that, you have elements that are secondary to the norm. Okay? So the norm, as I said, is what you usually call continuous text or body text, or the main text. Things that dominate over the norm are usually titles or subheads, images, introductory text, full quotes, things that you draw attention to. And then secondary to the norm would be footnotes, captions, margin notes, page numbers, headers, and footers. So think of the structure like this. Okay? Let's see what it looks like, what it might look like. Okay? That's the body text. That's the norm. Okay? That's the normal reading text. 10-point Georgia with 13-point leading. Do you understand this terminology? I am talking. There you go, slash subsama. Subpoint for lower type. Subsign point for line spacing. What do you do? 10 over 13. 10 on 13. Or there's 10 on 13. Okay. So that's normal text. If I say, okay, this is the normal text, the body text. What's below it would be a smaller type. Let's say this is the caption or footnotes or whatever, and it's in 8 on 11. Okay. And then above that would be the stuff that dominates over the norm is a heading, as in is a 20-point type or 25-point heading. Okay. So this is a possible structure like that. Of course, you might have other things. Right? I've introduced another element now. These are the subheads. And then I put the caption over to the smaller column. Okay? So I have a system going now. A head, this is the A head, top level heading. It's 20 over 25. I have B heads that are the same as the body text type, but it's bold. And I've captioned that smaller. Okay? Good solid hierarchy, a bit boring. It's not easy to scan things. It's reasonably okay, but it could be a little bit monotonous. Let's try something else. Okay. This might be a little bit easier to read. You have to find things. So again, typography's interface. You're starting to be able to access the information quite quickly. You say, oh, I want to read about cover, so you can just go there right away. Okay. So Corbell, I've introduced as a system font. So I've used space to separate these elements so it's easier to understand the structure. I've used a fixed gap here between the A head and the first paragraph. Okay. So now I've added a hierarchical numeric system to help people navigate the structure. Okay. If it's a short document, it's not worth putting in a system like that. Or I can make the headings off to the side so that they can be scanned quickly, right? Or I can separate them with a line. So this kind of makes each short paragraph quite distinct from each other. Okay? We call them rules rather than lines. Or I have something that's calling content off to the side, so if I don't have a lot of time, I can just pick up on a quick tip. So give these names, give these labels, so you can use typography to articulate the content. There's a meaning to do this. It's not just, oh, it looks nice, so I'm just putting something off the side. No, it helps people find things, read things. Yeah. You can use sans serif for everything. It's all right. It still reads quite well. Okay. There's very little difference in terms of legibility or readability. People prefer to read serif type 有腳嗰啲字啲人會即係比較中意啦，但係其實個 performance 唔係爭好遠嘅。Okay. 全嘅咖啡嚟睇得唔得啊？ No, not really. It's very hard to read for body text. For the headings, fine, no problem. It's just as well. Okay. So some sensor typefaces work better than others for text. So now I've added a little level of heading. So this is 7, 7.1, 7.1.2. It's a C head now. A head, B head, C head. So not too many levels because people get lost in structure. Okay. So if I don't put the numbering system, is this clear enough for people to understand this is under this big heading? Okay. Try to make it more explicit rather than subtle. So now I have further differentiation that I'm okay. So now it's even more clear, the structure. The navigation is even more clear if I call this out as an introductory paragraph. So your attention can be drawn to this without getting into further details. You can quickly understand, okay, this chapter is about making information accessible. Okay. Very strong differentiation. Okay, so that's content hierarchy articulated through the use of typography.